All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. Finally, big plans for the weekend?
It's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain. Malika, you're what?
Shopping.
You're gonna go shopping?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you enjoy that? Yeah. Well, that's a perfect activity for a rainy day, a rainy weekend. Yeah, it's gonna be a little wet. Oh well, that's okay. Or more time to just stay inside and study, right?
What?
Yeah, you stay inside and study social justice.
ให้ทำให้เก็บวอร์มอะครับ
Just review for fun. Don't you do that? Don't you just go home and reread and no? You don't do that? No? Sometimes. Like if there's a quiz coming up,
Yeah.
like immediately after. Okay. Let's see here. So Basil's here. Good morning, Basil. Hamad is here. Good morning, Hamad. Sean's here. Good morning, Sean. Basil's here. Good morning to you, sir. Simran is here. Good morning, Simran. Elizabeth is here. Good morning, Elizabeth. And Oasis is here. Good morning, Oasis. Okie dokie. So, oh yes, we were in the middle, or coming to the end, I guess, of our little documentary here with Adam Pearson, right? And of course, Adam Pearson is a British guy. He has a pretty noticeable facial disfigurement, to say the least. And so again, that sort of influences his life in a number of different ways, right? And again, it's interesting because even though he belongs to a lot of the dominant groups in his society, his membership in this one group will, yeah, it has a disproportionate effect on his life. Let's jump to number 5 because that's what we were talking about yesterday, right? So Adam had some questions about why disability hate crimes weren't really being prosecuted, and so he went to talk to a former Crown prosecutor, Michael, I forgot his last name, sat down with him and had a conversation, and Adam learned a few things about why hate crimes aren't really being punished, why they're not being convicted, and the prosecutor said 3 things, and what 3 things did he say? What 3 things did he say? He said what? You forgot? There was kind of 3 problems and they were connected together in a way.
Freedom of speech.
No.
The police didn't know how to handle, like how to talk to the disabled people.
Right. So when someone came in who was the victim of a crime and that person has a disability, police really weren't asking questions about the disability, right? They weren't trying to figure out if this was a disability hate crime or not, right? And so, and I said that that's part of socialization, right? We're socialized really not to point out people's disabilities, right? Where you're not really supposed to say anything. It can be a little awkward to ask questions, right? Like you shouldn't just go up to Adam Pearson on the street and say, "Hey, what's up with your face?" Like you shouldn't do that, right? That's rude, right? Our society tells us that's rude, and so the police are socialized just like the rest of us, and they may be kind of hesitant to ask those questions, right? But training needs to be put in place, right? The police need to be sure that, are they dealing with, this type of crime or that type of crime, right? Is this a hate crime or is it just something else, right? Okay, so the police weren't asking questions about people's disabilities, and therefore it wasn't going in their report, right? And so what was the next step?
The judge couldn't prosecute the crime, the hate crime, because they didn't take the crime.
The judge wouldn't.
The judge couldn't process the crime of hate crime.
Yeah. So judges can't punish people for hate crimes if that's not what they're charged with, right? And who is in charge of who's in charge of charging people with offenses? Nope. The judge just makes the decision.
Lawyers?
Yeah. So it's the lawyer for the country, the lawyer for the state. It's the crown prosecutor, right? They're the ones who bring charges against people usually. And so, yeah, the second part was that crown prosecutors weren't charging people with hate crimes. They weren't bringing it before the court and saying, no, this isn't just a regular bar fight. This man, good morning, this man Hayden in the documentary, he was assaulted because he was disabled. He was assaulted because he has a facial disfigurement, right? That's the job of the crown prosecutor, but crown prosecutors aren't really doing their job, right? They're not highlighting, sorry, they're not highlighting to the court that this is a disability hate crime, right? And again, the judge can only decide on what comes before them, right? So if you're charged with stealing a car, the judge cannot sentence you for murder, right? That's not how it works. And so if the person's not charged with a hate crime, the judge cannot punish them for a hate crime. They can only punish them for an assault, right? Or whatever it is. So we have we have two things, right? We have the idea that people who commit disability hate crimes get lighter sentences, right? They go to jail for less time, so there's that. But there's also this problem where people aren't really being charged and convicted of hate crimes because of the police and crown prosecutors, right? So there's a lot of education that needs to happen, because we saw in two cases in the film with Hayden, the guy with the hair over one side of his face, Hayden, and with Adam, that their interactions with the police were kind of meh, right? The cops were like, oh well, what are you gonna do, right? And again, there's things that the police could have done or should have known to do, but they didn't in this case, right? So so there's a few things kind of going wrong here. Let's go to number 7, because we saw that yesterday. What kind of study does Adam participate in? Yeah, so he's he participates in a psychological study, right? And the study is meant to expose people's implicit biases, right? So to see if you have any prejudicial ideas against people with facial disfigurements. And the test is designed to kind of access your subconscious ideas without you getting in the way, right? So you can't cheat, you can't, answer the test the way you want it to come out so that you look, cool and accepting. You can't manipulate the test this way, right? Now, to be honest, I don't know exactly how these tests work. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm going to.
How do you take the test?
What's that?
How do you take the test?
Well, that's probably one that the professor created himself, right? So again, I think how these tests normally go is they have pictures of, in this case, they would have been pictures of people's faces, okay, and some of them might have been people with actual facial disfigurements. Some of them might have been photoshopped a little bit, so they might have made them a little less symmetrical or still natural looking, but they might have manipulated them a little bit. And then they ask questions about, is this person trustworthy, right? Or, would you, if you met this person, what would you do? I think that's how it works, but I'm not sure about that part. But the images and the questions are carefully designed to allow people's sort of subconscious biases to come out. And often, the people who are being studied don't know what they're being studied for, right? So this is the thing, is that you can't manipulate the test, because often you don't know what it's testing, right? Only in the end do you, okay, now I see what it was doing. So I can't say that I understand exactly how they work, but if you take a psychology class here at Columbia College, you can ask your instructor. They will know. But yeah, so he participates in this study, and what what's kind of the result of that study? What did they discover?
People are not too biased towards the users, but eventually the results low.
Yeah, so they determined that it seems that yes, people had prejudice against people with disfigurements, right? The test kind of highlighted that. But as they interacted with Adam, their level of prejudice started to come down, right? And and it was interesting. There was the one man that took the test, Ewan, right? And he said he had done care work, right, for people with facial disfigurement. So he'd spent a lot of time with people with a facial disfigurement. And so his score was quite low, right? He wasn't prejudiced towards them because he spent a lot of time with them, right? And he doesn't have those same associations. But lots of other people did. But in some interaction with Adam, they were able to reduce that. Do you think the people were, when they went downstairs and they played Jenga and they sort of talked with Adam, do you think they were still uncomfortable? Those people? Do you think they, or what's that?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, why do you think so?
I think they can talk to him and connect with him. Yes.
They can or they can't? They can?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well they were able to connect with him a little bit, right? And he seems like a pretty easy guy to talk to, right? He seems pretty relaxed and he made a few jokes. I don't know if they were funny to you or not, but he gave it a shot, right? So he seems to be an easy guy to talk to. But why do you think I think some people might have been uncomfortable with Adam and talking to him, but why do you think that is? Why do you think people might have been uncomfortable around Adam?
Because they don't know how to talk to him and how to
They don't know how to talk to him? In what way?
because maybe like to him, like when you talk normally to a person and say things, you don't really like watch out and maybe they say something that offends them and they don't want to.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's almost like the old thing, like okay, everyone, whatever you do not think of a purple elephant, right? And of course, the first thing you do is think of a purple elephant, right? And so it's like when someone has a facial disfigurement, that's almost like all you can concentrate on, right? Because it's you're paying attention to it, and then you don't want to say anything about it, but it's all you can think about, and you get kind of confused and flustered. Is the purple elephant okay, or what? Yeah. Okay. See, you get kind of confused and flustered because it's the only thing you can think about, right?
Maybe you think most of the time to don't uncomfortable thing, but you lose your focus and lose your focus going to class and don't say anything that you become sad.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and you don't want to offend people either, right? And so you're kind of focused on this thing, but you're trying not to focus on it, and you're trying to talk, and you don't want to upset this person, and it can be tricky, right? Hey, Ryan and Poom, what do you think? Why do you think people might be uncomfortable talking to someone like Adam Pearson?
We will comfortable when we used to with each other.
Say that one more time.
We will feel comfortable to talk when we are used to already.
Okay, so it's easier to talk once you're used to him. Yeah. But what about when people aren't used to him? Like, why is it difficult? Would you say?
We don't know.
They are not used to it.
What's that?
They are not used to it.
That's true, but I'm not used to talking to you. But I'm not I'm not apprehensive about it. I'm not scared of it.
I think this facial is good.
Well, well, definitely, but why? Why? Reza is going to suggest here that maybe because they judge someone because of their face, right? And we do, right? I think we do kind of interpret people that way, right? And in fact, isn't it much more difficult to communicate with people with the mask on? Even if you forget about the fact that you have to like talk louder, but isn't it more difficult? Do any of you find that you are like when you're wearing the mask that you're kind of like more expressive with your eyes? Do you find yourself like doing like more eyebrow things and like of making all sorts of like eye movements to try to like communicate with people? Yeah, that's weird, right? It's interesting. I wonder if we'll keep doing it when the masks come off. I wonder if people will just be like, like making all sorts of weird, eye motions like they're having a little seizure or something, and people will be asking them like, "Are you okay?" But that's interesting too, because think about that in terms of Adam. Is his face expressive?
No.
Not really, right? I think because of those kind of non-cancerous tumors that are growing on his nerve endings, he's not really capable of facial expressions, right? His face is kind of the same whether he's happy or sad or you really can't tell, right? And so some people have said, "Oh, I thought Adam's face was a mask," right? People have tried to take his face off as if it's a mask, which is horrible, right? But in a way, it kind of is, right? Because it's not expressive. It doesn't communicate his emotions or his state of mind the way that ours does, right? And think about this. Eyes are the windows to the soul, right? I feel much better talking up here when I can see all of your eyes, right? That makes me feel like, that you're hearing me, right? And that we're kind of interacting. Even if you're daydreaming about something else, at least I have the feeling that, we are connected, right? I can interpret what's going on in your eyes. But can you do that with Adam?
No.
Not really, right? His eyes are it's kind of puffy around his eyes, and so we can't really even see his eyes very much. And so, do you think that might make people kind of uncomfortable? Maybe not on a conscious level, but
Where do you look at when you talk to it?
what's that?
People are probably trying to figure out where to look at when you talk to it.
Yeah, sometimes that's a bit of a struggle too.
Yeah. Usually you go for the eyes, but then you can't see the eyes, so
Right.
you start looking around, and then Adam might take it as judgmental.
Yeah, we don't know where to look, right? Have you found that too with if you meet someone or if you speak with someone who has a like a prosthetic eye or a glass eye?
I
'Cause-
haven't met anyone with a glass eye.
No?
I'd
My,
love to, though.
my friend's father had one when I was a teenager, and
Could he like pick it up whenever he wanted to?
he could, but he didn't, thankfully, because I don't want to see that. But the thing is that sometimes the eye was slightly unaligned, right? Like our eyes usually track pretty straight, but sometimes it would be a little off center, and it would be like, oh, which one do I look at, right? Because they weren't looking in the same direction, and so
Well, that's the same thing with cross-eyed people.
yeah, because you're not sure which eye to sort of. It takes you a minute to figure out which eye to focus on, right? And it's but that's just one of those things that we're used to doing, right? We're used to looking each other in the eyes. We're used to good morning. We're used to interpreting each other's facial expressions, right? And to see if you're happy or sad or I just made a joke. Do you think it's funny? Are you offended? Right? I'm looking at your face to figure out what's going on with you. But if I can't tell, right? Like then it's confusing, right? So it's like Malika said, there's you're paying attention to this facial disfigurement, you're trying not to think about it, you're trying not to offend the person, and then, you can't really interpret, in Adam's case anyway, you can't interpret his facial expressions, you can't see his eyes, and it probably takes a minute or two to get used to, right? Because in that way he is different from many other people that we meet, right? And again, there's nothing wrong there, right? Like, nobody's trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but it's a way in which humans communicate, right? And we're very used to doing that, and then when something gets in the way of it, it's a little, it puts you off balance just a little bit, right? And again, I don't think there's anything wrong there. It's just, it's a way in which humans operate. I think sometimes that's similar to people with mental health issues, because one of the things that we talked about earlier was that we really like it when people follow social norms, do we not? We really do, right? And I know we like our outlaws and our, anti-heroes and our rule breakers. I know we like those people, but in real life, we kind of like it when people follow the rules, right? When they don't act too weird. But people with mental illnesses often do act a little weird, right? They're not following social norms, right? They're not following the rules because they, are in a mental state where they're just not doing that, right? And so I think that makes people uncomfortable too, right? You have this person who, you're not really sure what they're going to do next because they're not really following the rules that all of us are, right? And so, I think that's, again, there's kind of a natural human communication here, but there's also, a social norm thing happening. And again, when we have things that have to do with people's disabilities that sort of get in the way of that, it can kind of put us off balance a little bit if we're not used to it, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's natural to be put off balance by those things, but it's also nice to know that that's what's happening sometimes, right? Like, yeah, I imagine it would be difficult to talk to Adam when you can't see his eyes and interpret his facial expressions and his mood. Yeah, I think that would be tough, right? I think that would be, at least at first, right? Until you got to know him a little better, right? Okay, so the next question here is, what does Adam decide to do as a result of this test? And that's kind of where we are right now, right? So he's just finished this psychological kind of experiment, testing people's prejudice towards people with facial disfigurements. Lots of people started high. They came down to varying degrees after meeting him and speaking with him and seeing that he's the world's worst Jenga player. And so he's going to take that information and see what he can do with it, right? So exposing people to people, oh God, what am I trying to say? Prejudice towards people decreases when people interact, right? When they're connected to one another, when they're, interacting with one another. So he's going to try and take that lesson and go with it. Let me just see here. I'm not sure where we left off in terms of what time. But just give me 1 second here, and I'm going to find out so that we can watch the rest. Let me see.
My name's Adam Pearson.
Oh, no, hang on. I gotta take this off.
My name's Adam Pearson.
Okay, so...
people with
Oh, good. Don't have very much left. Okay, there's the
Actually-
psychological study. There's Amir, the professor. Okay. So we're gonna start online people. We're gonna start from 4635, okay? So I'll just pop that in the live chat here. 4635. That's where we'll start. We'll watch to the end, and then once we're done, we'll come back here, answer the last few questions, and then we'll have a break, okay? So online people, I'll see you very shortly, okay? All right. Okay. So has anyone? This question is not on the board. Has anyone ever done like any stand-up comedy? Like, have you like told jokes in front of people?
I've watched it, but
You've never tried it?
I tried, but so it wasn't my thing or whatever new. I didn't try,
Uh huh.
and it was awful.
It was awful. Why?
Yeah, nobody laughed.
Nobody laughed. Oh no. No, no. Zartaj said he did, or said he tried. How did it go there, Zartaj? Um, yeah, it's tough. It's tough, eh? I did it. I'll tell this story. I didn't plan to, but I was in junior high, so I was probably like 13 years old or 14, and we were supposed to do a speech for our language arts for our English class. And the night before, I didn't write anything. Okay, I think we could have spoke on anything. I didn't write anything, and so what I did was I watched. The night before there was a bunch of comedy specials on TV, and so I sat there and I wrote down a bunch of the jokes, like the ones that I thought were the funniest. I wrote them all down, and then I memorized them, and then I went in front of the class and I basically did a stand-up routine. Which actually worked out really well, which was surprising because I really should have done a better job. Like I should have, written something and rehearsed it, and instead I kind of just copied a bunch of these jokes and then I told them in front of everyone. But it worked out, I don't know, to my 14-year-old brain, it worked out pretty well. I remember one joke that was, the guy said, he said, did you ever go over to like someone's house and they're like they make dinner for you and the food is really bad, and it's really, and he says, yeah, he's like, I've done that a lot of times, and so he said, now I have a rule. He's like, when I go over to somebody's house, I look at the dog. If the dog's really fat, I don't eat. Anyway, that's the only joke I remember from that. Zartaj said it was a little awkward. Yeah, it's super awkward, and it was very nerve-wracking, and I can only assume it was super nerve-wracking for Adam to get up in front of people and not only have people judging his comedy, but also judging the way he looks as well, right? I thought he was pretty funny though. It's not bad. So what does he do? Well, he tries stand-up comedy, right? He finds a way to connect with people. What's that?
he stares into the mud.
He's what?
He stares into the mud.
Stares into the mud?
Steer.
Oh, he stirs the mud? Is that an expression?
Steer into the mud.
Oh, he steers into the mud? Is that an expression?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like if something's going bad for you, just like go with it, make something funny out of it.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that one before. I like it. Well, I guess in a way he does, right? He doesn't run away from the prejudice. He kind of embraces it and stands up and has some fun with it, right? Which is, a credit to him. Not always easy to do, or not always possible to do, not always desirable to do. I don't think we should tell jokes about the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that would be inappropriate, right? But in some cases, it can work, right? So, yeah, I guess in what ways is what Adam is doing helpful in terms of prejudice and discrimination toward disabled people? What's Adam doing that's good, that's helping out? Yeah. Yeah, I guess he's presenting, I guess, a positive image of people with disabilities or people with disfigurements, right? And people may have, stereotypical ideas in their head. Those ideas may have no no bearing in truth, but if they don't meet anyone, then they're never challenged, right? And Adam gets up there, well dressed, charming, funny, does his comedy thing, and people are like, oh yeah, he's cool, right? Cool guy. And so, yeah, it gives them this sort of positive counter, I guess, to the negative ideas that they might have had, right? Yeah. Well, how else is he helping out here? How is he helping out?
Joke around the things that we find annoying about him or unique, and somehow the audience will like hear that and not do it, you know? Like if I hear a joke, oh, he's saying something wrong, it's so annoying when people do this and make a joke out of it.
Yeah.
The audience would think, oh, so this is annoying, like this is against the norm for them.
Okay. So, are you saying that in the jokes that he tells, he can sort of socialize? Oh, okay. He can socialize them into, yeah, things that happen to him that are, not enjoyable, right? Yeah. If he phrases them right, yeah, he can communicate, he can communicate his experience in a way that people might be open to listening to, right? That's one way of sharing his experience, right? Yeah, that's good. Do you worry that, if he gets up there and tells jokes that sort of reference his disability, do you feel like other people might try and make jokes about people with disabilities too as a result, or yeah? Not really?
Like, usually we have a lot of celebrity people that we like are comedians and they can make fun of themselves, we can't, you know?
That's
The
true.
social norm.
Yeah.
I guess that's true, right? That's a bit of a social norm, right? Is that if like you can make fun of, there's certain things that you're allowed to make fun of because it's your family or your culture or whatever, but that doesn't give other people license to do it as well, right? So hopefully if that social norm holds for this kind of thing, then maybe he'll be okay. But yeah, it depends a lot about what his comedy is like, right? It depends on how he writes his jokes and what he says. But yeah, I think it could go either way. What about other things? Is he, in what ways is he helping, and in what ways is what he's doing just not enough?
What do you mean by that?
I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't phrase the question very well. All of the efforts that Adam is doing, what things are not fixed by what he's doing? Because he can't fix everything, right? He's pointed out a lot of things in this documentary, but he's one man, right? He can't fix everything. So what is he not able to fix on his own? True. Yeah, that's true. He is not. That is a fact. What else is he not able to fix? What else is he not able to fix? I wish I put alcohol in this morning.
It's Friday, you can.
What else is he not able to fix? Question. What? That's true, right? Is he can't really stop hate crimes from happening. Certainly not on his own, unless he dresses up as a bat and goes out at night and fights crime. What I'm kind of thinking about number 5. Question number 5. What? So his efforts are they having any impact on the legal system?
Oh no.
Yeah, probably not, right? So there are things that he is able to do as one person, but yeah, there's bigger issues, right? There's part of oppression is the control of institutions and legal laws and policies and procedures, right? And so he's not really able to change that, I don't think, on his own. And so he's going to need help in that area, right? That needs to be fixed as well. So he's out there kind of doing his thing, but there's other change that needs to happen as well, right? With the police, the court system, with society in general, right? Again, most people don't seem to know what disableism or ableism really is. So, would you say that this documentary is something that he's doing to sort of reduce prejudice?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Because he can reach, he can reach people on, all over the world. Actually, I just wanted to check. I've never looked at this, but yeah, kind of curious now. You want to take a guess? Sorry?
Less than 2 million.
Less than 2 million. Yes. As it turns out, it has a little less than 500,000 views, so 437,000. But that's 437,000 people that Adam has reached, right? He's been able to kind of meet them through the documentary, or we've been able to meet him, sort of get to know what he's like, see what, imagine what his struggles may be, and yeah, that's huge, right? That's way bigger than his stand-up comedy, unless he winds up being really famous one day. This was posted on July 23rd, 2015, and so I think this was produced in 2015, so it's about 6 years old. So he hasn't become a superstar quite yet. But yeah, so this documentary is huge, right? 500,000 people almost have seen this documentary and sort of gotten a window into Adam's experience, right? That's massive. That's huge. I'm going to leave number 10 for a little while because I want to talk about that a little bit later. Would you like to take a break? Yes, you would? Yes, you would? All right. Let's take a little break. We'll come back, and I have, we'll unpack a little bit more of that, and then I've got something else to show you, but let's take a break first. Okay, so we've watched this documentary, and I want to throw a few more things at you here. Okay, so let's go back to our external and our internal elements of privilege, right? We said there were kind of two types, and for external, we said that one of the functions of privilege is that it integrates the dominant group's norms and structures into society, okay? It also allows the dominant group to construct what's normal and not normal. Okay, how many people are on their phones here? I'm counting about 5. Okay. So the construction of what's normal and not normal. Also the invisibility of privilege for the dominant group. Let's look at some examples of this kind of structural external privilege for people with disabilities, right? So this should be familiar to everyone, I would think, right? So here's a regular Vancouver city bus, right? Now, those seats are not that big, are they? Not huge, right? And so you can imagine if you got on the bus and you were a larger person, you're going to struggle to sit, right? And so if you're someone who's, above average height, kind of the bigger you are, the less you're going to fit in there. Or if you're someone who weighs more than average, you're going to have a difficult time fitting into those seats. I have a difficult time fitting into those seats, and I'm not gigantic, right? But still, they're kind of a squeeze, right? Have a look at these. We see these all the time, at least in Canada. I don't know about other countries if they're popular or not. But here in Canada, they were only made mandatory in the 1990s. So previously, if you were in a wheelchair, well, it might be very difficult for you to cross the street because you can't get off the curb. You might have to find a driveway, and then you have to roll along the street, and it's dangerous and ridiculous, right? Or if you use a walker or some such mobility aid, these curb cuts are, allow accessibility, but they're not everywhere. You don't see them everywhere, and until the 1990s, there weren't many of them, right? But this is one way in which, the dominant group, able-bodied people, have built the world, and then we've made little accommodations for people with disabilities, right? Oops. Think about, back to the bus example, think about the chairs you're all sitting in, okay? So I don't know how comfortable these chairs are for you on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm guessing they're about a 3.5, okay? 3.5, maybe 4. They're not super comfortable, but imagine if you were someone who weighed quite a bit more than you do, right? Let's say you weighed, 350 pounds, okay? Would you be able to sit in this chair? Maybe. What's that?
350 pounds.
What is it? You'll have to Google it. I don't know. It's I don't know my kilos very well. So, actually, yeah, do that for me. How many kilos is 350 pounds? Is 1.8, right? 158 kilos? Okay. So if you weighed 158 kilos, or maybe 350 pounds, you would have quite a struggle, because what you would find is that most chairs are manufactured with a chair weight rating, and usually they're around 200, maybe 225 pounds, right? Manufacturers, the more a chair is weighted for, or rated for, the more expensive it is to produce, right? So people aren't going to manufacture chairs that are, overly strong. They're just as strong as they need to be. So most of these chairs will probably hold about 225 pounds, maybe 250. But if you are 350, you're not going to be able to sit in any of these chairs, right? And think about how many chairs you sit in a day that if you weighed 350 pounds, you wouldn't be able to sit in, right? And then think about the fact that you might actually be tired carrying around 350 pounds, and you might want to sit down quite a bit, and yet the chairs that exist would not support you. And in fact, sitting in them might be dangerous, right? What if it collapses underneath you? Humiliating, number one, right? What? But also painful, right? Like it can be it could be really dangerous to have a chair collapse underneath you. And so, again, the simple fact that you might weigh more than average means that there's a lot of places that you can't sit down, right? Let's look at the second one. The second one is the definition of the dominant group gets to define what's normal and what's not normal. And so here's two faces. The guy in the little circle there doesn't count. Here's two faces. Our friend Adam Pearson, who we all know. Anyone know who the guy on the right is? The guy from The Office? Yeah, that's Steve Carell.
Right.
I have seen him in the movie.
Which movie did you see him in? He's
Really long time.
Yeah, he's been in quite a number of movies. He's the voice of Gru in Despicable Me and Minions and things like that. So he's a very popular actor, and so here we have two men's faces, right? One man's face is, I think we would define as normal. Some people might find him quite handsome. I don't know what your preferences are. Doesn't matter. But here we have what society would call a normal face, and what society would call an abnormal face, a face that is kind of outside of the boundary of what normal is. But if we look at these faces, there are a lot of similarities, right? Both have two eyes, both have a nose, both have a mouth and two ears. The ears and the nose are kind of holding up these men's glasses, right? Both men have hair on the top of their head, right? So both men are dressed up at some sort of premiere or black tie event. So we have two faces here that are in some ways quite similar and in other ways quite different, right? But what defines what a normal face is, right? And here we have kind of an extreme comparison, because we have Steve Carell, who's a reasonably handsome man, I think we can agree. And we have Adam Pearson, whose face is kind of well outside of the boundary of normal. But I ask you to think about, where is that boundary? What takes a face from being normal to being not normal? Where does a face become not normal? Because all of us, we all have unique faces, right? None of our faces are the same, and arguably, if you go around the world, nobody has a face that is identical to anyone else. So how do we define whose face is normal and whose face isn't when everyone's is different? Right? There's no answer there, but I just thought I would, something to think about, right? Who gets to decide what's normal, and where is the line between normal and abnormality? Right? The other part of this is, again, the belief that the dominant group has a right to its position, right? So, again, well, why should we, people don't often question why the world is constructed for able-bodied people, right? Yes, we are the majority, but why should it be, right? When it's easier for us to get around than for others. Shouldn't we build a world that, all people can access equally? Is it too expensive? Who gets to say, right? Internalization of messages of your group's superiority. I think we probably met some people or heard about some people in that documentary who probably felt that way, right? Who felt that they were, in fact, superior to these people with disabilities. A lack of humility that results from your limited knowledge of the minoritized group. That was happening with that drunk woman in the bar, remember? She was, I don't know how she could be so stupid, but she asked, she tells, stand up, are you stuck in this chair? like when you see someone in a wheelchair, they're someone who needs to use the chair, right? They're not doing it for fun. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just getting annoyed at her. But she doesn't really know anything about him or his situation or the fact that he does have prosthetic legs, but he leaves them in the car because he doesn't want to be staggering around when he's drunk on these prosthetic legs, right? And then finally, the invisibility of privilege. So again, think about all of the ways that you move through the world that you don't think about, right? All of the barriers that you do not encounter, right? Stairs, curbs, streets maybe with no light or no, beep beep or tweet tweet, whatever they do. Streets with none of those that you might have to cross, right? Doors that you might have to open. Those door handles that you see there are Vancouver Building Code, right? Because some people have trouble opening a doorknob. They have trouble grabbing onto it. With this, you can just push it down, right? With whatever you push down with, it will open, right? Doorknobs are more difficult, right? So you won't see a lot of buildings. You won't see a lot of commercial buildings with doorknobs. You'll see them with those things there. Right? Let me just see. What did I have? Oh yeah. So let's connect this back to the story that we read, right? The external and structural. The sunglasses that were only made for three-eyed people. I wonder what kind of clothing Adam struggles to wear, right? He's got kind of a big head, so I wonder if it's difficult for him to like put sweaters on, right? I wonder if it stretches the neck out, because his neck is kind of a average size, right? But his head is quite large. It's probably tricky, right? When he goes out in the sun, like where are you going to find a hat that will fit Adam's head, right? He's kind of wearing glasses there, so I assume that, his ears are aligned enough so that he can wear glasses, so that's okay. I'm not sure what else I wanted to say about that. Or that. Oh, I do. This is some of the internal and attitudinal dimensions of privilege. Internal and attitudinal dimensions. So, the privileged group often feels comfortable invading the space of minoritized persons. So in the story, we saw the salesperson, taking this, taking the character's arm and moving them away, right? Here we see, right at the beginning of this documentary with Adam, there was some drunk guy saying, "Oh, I know you, I love you, here, come give me a hug." I don't know you, don't hug me, right? But he was very comfortable invading Adam's space, right? Same thing with the drunk woman, with Dan, the soldier, right? She was very comfortable invading his personal space. She didn't know him, but his minoritized status kind of made her feel more confident that way, right? The privileged group feels qualified to represent the experiences of minoritized persons, right? How many times have we seen in movies people with disabilities portrayed by people without disabilities, right? People who are blind played by sighted actors, right? People who are deaf played by actors who can hear. People or characters in wheelchairs played by people who are not, right? I was going to mention Professor X, but that's probably not, it's probably not sort of, dramatic enough. But still, we see the privileged group feels qualified to represent that experience. Members of the privileged group see themselves as superior and believe that the minoritized person could or should be fixed. And so again, people with disabilities, this is a tricky one. while we don't want to communicate that there's anything wrong with people with disabilities, might we also attempt to make their lives better, right? Is someone who uses a wheelchair, if we could allow them to walk, would they want to? Well, that's the thing, right? Is that I would assume so, right? Like from my perspective as an able-bodied person, yeah, I like the way I get around, right? I like my life as it is. And if I was in a wheelchair, I would think that I would want to walk. But I don't know, because I've never been in one. And so maybe if I was, maybe I wouldn't want to be fixed that way. Or maybe I would. Like, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, for many of us who are kind of not in that situation, it's hard to know what the feeling is, because we don't have any, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to use a wheelchair.
You miss the dumbest things, I swear.
What's that?
You miss the dumbest things in the world when you're in a wheelchair.
What do you mean?
When I had to use a wheelchair, I miss like just standing up at the toilet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's
you had to,
so
why
funny.
did you have to use one?
I had a complete tear in my right hamstring.
Okay.
So I was bedridden for 6 months.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. So, but while that was happening, you also knew that you were going to be out of it in the end, right?
Yeah, and it felt like a really long time. And all
Sure.
I could think about was just walking again.
I'm sure it felt like forever.
Yeah, and then like physio was another 2 years as well.
Yep.
So it was like, I think in total like 2.5 years before I could walk like a normal person.
Yeah. Well, there you go, right? And but that's different, because you know what it's like to walk around, and that's been your life, and you know that you're going to get back to it,
So
right?
it's just kind of in that moment, you know.
Yeah. But I'm not sort of invalidating your experience, because it was probably a very interesting one, even if it was not enjoyable,
Yeah.
right? But yeah. So, but is it the same feeling as always having been in a wheelchair?
Definitely.
Yeah. Or, finding yourself needing one and then knowing that this is it, right? Like you are not going to walk again unless there is some scientific miracle, right? And so, again, is that the same feeling? And I don't know, right? Maybe many people who use wheelchairs would say, duh, Mike, like, yeah, we want to walk, like, let's do this, right? Or maybe not, right? But I don't want to make that assumption for people, because I don't know what it's like, right? And again, we want to provide solutions that make people's lives easier and allow people to sort of experience life more equitably, but we don't want to fix them at the same time, right? We don't want to imply that there's anything wrong with who and what they are. So it's tricky, right? Like, I don't know. And that's the thing, you have to ask people who are in that situation, right? You have to ask them what they want, because it's tough to know, right? So let me see here. Okay, 25. Okay, we've got time for this. This is interesting. This is a little TED Talk that's not a pun, by a woman named Sinead Burke. Sinead's from Ireland, and she talks about her sort of experience with disability, and she references a number of internal and external elements of privilege, okay? Things that, and remember, privilege, of course, as defined by Andre, if he's ever here, ever again, as he defined it, he said that it was things that you can do that other people can't, right? Which was pretty good. And so, what are some things that other people can do that Sinead can't, right? And again, how do people interact with her, right? How do people treat her? Okay, so I'm just going to pop this into Microsoft Teams here, and then, that's not the right one, then we can watch. It's very short. That's not a pun either. So online people, of course, I'm just going to pop this into Microsoft Teams so you can watch it as well. And it is there, or the link is there, I should say. And we'll just watch it, and then we'll come back, and if we have any time, we'll talk about it, okay? So online people, we'll see you in just a little bit. The link is in Microsoft Teams. Right. So on Monday we'll just quickly review what Sinead said. We'll finish up ableism, and then we'll move on to sexism, which should be pretty interesting, I think. So until then, I hope everyone has a good weekend. Try and get some rest and relax and do something fun, even though it's going to rain. And I'll see you on Monday. Okay. All right. That is it. See you Monday, people.